Have you ever met someone who seemed to know everything? The kind of person who speaks with such unwavering certainty that you couldn't help but believe them? The kind of colleague who confidently presented a flawed idea, only to be surprised when it fell apart? Or, more uncomfortably, have you ever caught a glimpse of that person in the mirror? This isn't a flaw of character. It's a trick of the mind. Our brains, in their constant quest for efficiency, often trick us into believing that a little familiarity with a subject is the same as mastery. It's a cognitive shortcut, a survival mechanism that, in the modern world, can become a secret barrier to your career growth. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most powerful and misunderstood psychological phenomena, the Dunning-Kruger Effect. We'll explore why those with the least knowledge often have the most confidence, and why this isn't a problem of intelligence, but of self-awareness. More importantly, we're going to uncover the surprising truth that the antidote to this trap isn't more knowledge, but a simple, profound shift in perspective. We'll reveal why a nagging sense of self-doubt might actually be a hidden sign of your true expertise, and how you can use this awareness to transform your career trajectory, turning a cognitive blind spot into your greatest professional advantage. Our journey begins at a place we've all been, a place so many of us are afraid to admit we've visited. It's a point on the learning curve that psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger famously described, often visually represented as the peak of Mount Stupid. This isn't a peak of genuine achievement, but of false confidence. It's the moment when a novice, having acquired a small, superficial amount of information, overestimates their own knowledge and ability to a spectacular degree. Think of it this way. A beginner in any field, be it painting, coding, or managing, a team learns the basic concepts, the jargon, and a few fundamental techniques. This small amount of knowledge, however, is enough to allow them to construct a complete, albeit flawed, mental model of the subject. Crucially, they don't yet know enough to see the immense landscape of what they don't know. They are blissfully unaware of the complexities, the nuances, and the hidden pitfalls that only experience can reveal. Their confidence soars because their map of the world is small, and they've already navigated its entire visible territory. The mountain they've climbed is tiny, but from their vantage point, it feels like the highest peak in the world. Their certainty is a function of their limited horizon, not their actual skill. They are in a state of what we call unconscious incompetence. Consider the example of a marketing intern who, after reading a single article on social media strategy, confidently presents a new campaign idea to the entire team. They've learned about hashtags and engagement rates, and from their limited perspective, they've grasped the entire field. The seasoned marketing manager, however, sees 1,000 different variables that the intern hasn't even considered. The client's long-term brand identity, the legal restrictions on certain ad types, the A/B testing data from previous campaigns, and the historical sales metrics that would render the intern's idea obsolete. The manager's skepticism isn't a lack of support. It's a deep-seated awareness of the profound complexity that the intern, standing atop their Mount Stupid, cannot even perceive. The intern's journey is stalled not by a lack of raw talent, but by a barrier of self-delusion. This brings us to the deeper psychological question: why does our brain do this to us? Why is the feeling of certainty so appealing, even when it's built on a shaky foundation? The answer lies in the brain's fundamental need for consistency and its relentless drive to conserve energy. Our minds are built to fill in the gaps. When faced with incomplete information, the brain doesn't like to sit in a state of ambiguity or doubt. It actively works to create a coherent narrative, a finished picture, even if it has to invent the missing pieces. This process is highly efficient. A confident conclusion requires less mental effort than a thorough, painstaking analysis of all possibilities. The feeling of certainty is the brain's way of signaling, okay, the puzzle is solved, we can move on now. Let's use an analogy to make this clearer. Imagine your brain as an old-school cartographer, tasked with creating a map of a vast, unexplored continent. It has only a few scattered reports from early explorers who've seen the coastline. Instead of leaving the interior blank and marking it terra incognita, our brain quickly sketches in a few mountains, rivers, and forests. It completes the map, not because it knows what's there, but because it needs a finished document. The feeling of certainty is the neat, finished label on that map. This illusion of a complete picture provides a sense of psychological comfort, reduces the anxiety of the unknown, and allows us to make decisions quickly. In the professional world, this translates to a preference for a simple, confident answer over a nuanced, uncertain one. The mind gravitates towards what feels solid, even if that solidity is a mirage. For example, think of a small business owner who reads a single case study about a successful competitor's business model. Their brain, in its drive for certainty, doesn't see the case study as a single data point for further research. Instead, it creates a complete narrative of success, assuming that simply replicating a few visible strategies will yield the same results. Their overconfidence leads them to commit significant resources without testing their assumptions, dismissing any dissenting voices as a lack of vision. When the plan inevitably fails, the business owner isn't just disappointed. They are genuinely baffled. Their brain's internal map, the one they trusted so completely, has proven to be a work of fiction. Now, let's consider the surprising flip side of this phenomenon. While the novice is experiencing the bliss of overconfidence, a truly competent individual often feels something entirely different. A nagging sense of self-doubt known as imposter syndrome. This is not a weakness. It is, in fact, a crucial sign of intellectual and professional growth. As we move from the summit of Mount Stupid down the other side, we begin to climb the real mountain of expertise. And as we climb, our perspective widens. We see the vastness of the field, the interconnectedness of complex ideas, and the countless things we still don't know. The feeling of imposter syndrome is simply the honest reaction to this reality. It's the moment we realize that we are not at the summit of a tiny hill, but at the foot of an infinite mountain range. Imagine an experienced musician who has practiced their craft for decades. A novice might learn a few chords and feel like a rock star. The seasoned musician, however, understands the depth of their art, the intricacies of music theory, the history of their instrument, and the almost infinite ways a song can be interpreted. When they sit down to compose, they are profoundly aware of the vastness of what they still need to learn and the limitations of their own creativity. That's not a lack of confidence. It's a deep, sober understanding of the path to true mastery. They feel like an imposter not because they are incompetent, but because their standard for what it means to be truly competent is so much higher. This paradox also manifests in what we call the expert blind spot. A true expert can sometimes struggle to communicate their knowledge to a beginner. Their mastery is so deep and automated that they've forgotten the basic steps. It's like a world-class chef who can no longer explain how to chop an onion to a novice, because the simple act is now muscle memory. They don't lack knowledge. They are so overflowing with it that the very act of breaking it down feels foreign. This is a subtle but important distinction that separates genuine mastery from a simple, superficial understanding. The consequences of this cognitive delusion are not abstract. They have tangible, real-world costs. Unchecked overconfidence is a silent career killer. It prevents us from seeking out constructive feedback, a fundamental requirement for growth. Why would we seek criticism? if we are already certain of our own expertise. This closed loop of self-perception ensures that our blind spots remain exactly that, unseen. Consider a manager who is promoted quickly, but due to their position on Mount Stupid, believes their success is solely due to their own brilliance. They dismiss feedback from their team as negative or resistant to change. They are unwilling to admit fault, creating a culture of fear and silence. Over time, their team becomes disengaged, productivity plummets, and key talent leaves. The manager is eventually passed over for a senior leadership position, not because of a lack of technical skill, but because of a profound inability to grow and collaborate. Their overconfidence has not only stalled their own career, but has also created a toxic environment that undermined the success of those around them. This delusion becomes a barrier to professional advancement, as true leadership requires a blend of competence and humility that this individual simply lacks. So, how do we escape this trap? The path forward is not a simple one, but it is deeply rewarding. It begins with a profound shift in mindset, a commitment to what we can call radical humility. This is not about a lack of confidence or a desire to be a doormat. On the contrary, radical humility is a form of quiet strength, the courage to admit what you don't know, and the intellectual honesty to be in a constant state of learning. It is the superpower that allows you to absorb feedback, collaborate effectively, and adapt to a world that is always changing. It's the conscious choice to descend from Mount Stupid and begin the long, difficult, but ultimately more rewarding climb up the mountain of true mastery. To make this practical, we can embrace a mental model I call the Competence Compass. Your ego is not the needle of this compass. Your curiosity is. The compass has a simple function. It constantly calibrates your position based on new information. When you receive feedback, don't see it as a personal attack. See it as a valuable data point that helps you correct your course. When you meet someone who knows more than you do, don't feel threatened. See it as an opportunity to ask questions and learn. This mental model encourages a growth mindset, where mistakes are not failures but lessons, and where your professional identity is not a fixed destination, but a continuous journey of discovery. This, then, is the core of the revelation. The true barrier to your career growth isn't a lack of knowledge or talent. It's the lack of self-awareness that comes from a belief in your own omniscience. The Dunning-Kruger Effect is not merely a funny anecdote about incompetent people. It's a powerful psychological force that threatens to stall every single one of us at a critical stage of our professional life. The greatest competitive advantage you can possibly have is not being the smartest person in the room, but being the person who is most aware of their own limitations. The hidden gift of imposter syndrome is that it's the feeling you get when you've just realized how much more there is to learn. It is the necessary, healthy state of conscious incompetence, the very first step on the path to genuine expertise. Your goal is not to eliminate this feeling of doubt, but to embrace it as your compass, guiding you away from the mirage of Mount Stupid and toward the infinite horizons of true, lifelong mastery. The journey to mastery never truly ends. True expertise is not a destination, but a continuous process of learning, unlearning, and relearning. The most resilient and successful professionals are those who have learned to use their own self-doubt as a tool for growth. So, I invite you to ask yourself, what is one thing in your professional life where you might be standing on a small hill, mistaking it for a true mountain peak? Where is your competence compass pointing you next? By consciously and courageously asking these questions, you begin to turn a dangerous cognitive blind spot into a powerful tool for self-awareness, resilience, and meaningful professional success.